Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Sripad Paramahansa Bhagavadgitacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Bhagavadgitacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotee. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. So, the usual question, where exactly are we? And I have this marker here, and I'm pretty sure we did 22. Fourth chapter. We're in fourth chapter, text 22, but we did that one because it's one of my verses I remember from a million years ago, and I know that we did this one. So we're going to be on 23. Okay? That'll be at the top of page 210. I don't think we have that old book anymore. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 27th day of May, 2019, in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary, by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we're in chapter 4, entitled Transcendental Knowledge, text number 23, which is at the top of page 210. And Gata Sangasya Muktasya Jnana Vastita Chetasaha Yagyaya Chadata Karma Samagram Prabaliyate Gata Sangasya Muktasya Jnana Vastita Chetasaha Yagyaya Chadata Karma Samagram Prabaliyate Gata Sangasya Muktasya Jnanavastita Chetasaha Yagyaya Chadata Karma Samagram prabaliyate. Parashakti. Gatasangasya muktasya. Jnanavastita chetasaha. Yagyaya chatata karma. Samagram prabaliyate. Gatasangasya muktasya. Jnanavastita chetasaha. Yagyaya chatata karma. Samagram prabaliyate. Anyone else? Ace? Go ahead. Gatasangasya muktasya. Jnanavastita chetasaha. Yagyaya chatata karma. Samagram prabaliyate. No? Okay. Gatasangasya, of one unattached to the modes of material nature. Muktasya, of the liberated. Jnana avastita, situated in transcendence. Chetasaha, whose wisdom. Yagyaya, for the sake of yagya, Krishna. Achadatak, acting, karma, work. Samagram, in total. Pravaliyate, merges entirely. Translation. The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence. Purport. Becoming fully Krishna conscious, one is freed from all dualities and thus is free from the contaminations of the material modes. He can become liberated because he knows his constitutional position in relationship with Krishna, and thus his mind cannot be drawn from Krishna consciousness. Consequently, whatever he does for Krishna, who is the primeval Vishnu. Therefore, all his works are technically sacrifices, because sacrifice aims at satisfying the Supreme Person, Krishna or Vishnu. The resultant reactions to all such works certainly merge into transcendence, and one does not suffer material effects. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this chapter is called Transcendental Knowledge. And what we're hearing now is the means of acting in knowledge for the sake of becoming free from the reactions of karma. And it all keys on the idea of sacrifice, which is a theme actually from the previous chapter also. The previous chapter is simply called Karma Yoga, and this chapter is called Transcendental Knowledge. But they're intimately related, because if you're going to act properly and in such a way that the criterion is that you're not incurring any new karma or any new reactions that you have to receive, either good or bad, and you're getting free of previous karmic reactions. This is the ideal way of working. And the only way that can be done is if you work for sacrifice. Meaning, and in the third chapter it's described, what is it? Yagyartart kamano yatra loko yam karma bandhana. Which means that work has to be done for a sacrifice, as a sacrifice for Vishnu or Krishna, otherwise work binds one to this material world. Now, that may seem like an impossible task on the face of it, because we have so many things we have to do just to maintain this body, so many things I have to do, How could it all be a sacrifice for Krishna? That is what this movement is all about, is training us how we can work and live in this world comfortably, not extravagantly. As we're studying on Monday, we're studying the Ishopanishad, and it describes how the first mantra, famous mantra, Ishabhashamidam sarvam hirkincha jagatyam jagatena chaktena buddhita magodakasya svidhanam, that everything is owned and controlled by the Lord, because it's all His energy. He created everything. So one is entitled to his quota to live decently in this world. But as soon as you start claiming more proprietorship over something, then you become a thief. And then you're acting on the basis of false ego, not on the basis of understanding your relationship with the Supreme. So, and if we were completely outside of the Vedic paradigm, that our activities are not only selfish, but not even according to the Vedic injunctions, because there's a whole part of the Vedas that's called karma kanda, which is more or less selfish, but it's within the rules and regulations. And if you act in such a way, you can go to heaven, or you can get a much better birth in this life. And so it's a path upward. It's not completely pure, but at least it's within the Vedic paradigm, and eventually the idea is you'll come to the point of pure devotion, pure understanding. So the Bhagavad Gita speaks about that, both in this chapter, and also we find in chapter 7, where Krishna is describing the 4 kinds of people who come to him. Not pure devotees. It says, Chatur Vadha Bhajante Mam Jana Sukrita Norjana. The word Sukriti means pious. 4 kinds of pious people come to me. Those who are in trouble, suffering. A whole bunch of people. Many people, that's what religion means. I go to God and pray for health and wealth and safety, and like that. Fine, they're coming to God. Those who need something material, whether it's money or anything else that they're needing, even for praying for good health, to cure the disease, that's also within this category. But you believe in God and you're praying to Him, that's good. Krishna says these are pious people. Those who are simply curious, it's like we have so many people, they may come on Sunday or wander in, they got some book and say, what's it all about? They're curious, which is fine. And Krishna says, and the best of all these 4 is the Jnani, one who really knows and is looking for transcendental knowledge. And that's the best category. But all of them, because they're coming to Krishna, the idea is if you come in contact with Krishna any way at all, you'll be purified. Because Krishna is all attractive. And it's just like going out in the sun. You don't have to know how the sun works. You don't know how far it is. Just go out in the sun, and you'll be benefited. You don't want to get too much sun, but you'll get the benefit. So if you somehow come in touch with Krishna through his devotees, through his holy name, through the deities, prasadam, books, any way at all, then Krishna attracts you, and he attracts you in all ways: your intelligence, your heart, your senses, and prasadam, so many different things. So here, in this particular chapter now, Krishna has spoken of the origin of the Gita. He says, this is not something new I'm speaking to you. I spoke it many, many years ago to the sun god. He spoke it to his son, came down to Ikshvaku and in the human society. But now the process has been distorted by time. Every time tends to destroy everything, especially in Kali Yuga. I remember as a kid, they had this principle, entropy increases. If you just leave your room, you don't clean it, it becomes all disorganized and dirty, right? You have to make it different. So that's entropy, disorganization. Similarly, the pure knowledge of the Vedas becomes lost by the time, especially in Kali Yuga. So Krishna, he says, when it becomes lost, I come. Yada yadahi dharma saglana bhavati bharata. That's in this chapter, this famous verse. Whenever and wherever there's a discrepancy in religion and irreligion it becomes predominant, I come in order to protect my devotees, reestablish a religion, eradicate the atheists and the demons. So that's also in this chapter, and a very important verse describing how if one can simply understand in truth my appearance and my transcendental activities, then you'll come to me at the end of this life. You won't have to take another birth. But what is that really understanding in truth? Not so easy. It's more than just reading the book. And this is where the confluence of these 2 elements, knowledge and activity, comes in. Just knowing, so many verses in the Bhagavad Gita, but not acting on them, that's not what Krishna is talking about. When he's talking about acting in knowledge, it means you understand the principles and then you actually do them. You do those things that are conducive to devotional service, and you avoid the things that prevent it. There's a wonderful passage at the end of the 16th chapter
which to me is like one of the most critical factors for our practical devotional service. And he says, after describing kind of a hair-raising passage in the 16th chapter of the nature and the destiny of the demons, how those who are completely reject me, what is it? It starts out with this asatyam apatishtam te jagadahu anishwaram padaspadasambhutam kimanyat kama hoitakam. He says the demons say there's no ultimate truth, asatyam. There's no ultimate foundation to this world. Everything is just a chance combination of molecules on the basis of attraction and repulsion, and there's no God. It's not that they don't know. That's agnostic. That's okay, but they're positive there's no God, and they declare it and make a big campaign of it. That's the demons. And then they're describing, in that mentality, they become vicious. They try to accumulate as much wealth as possible. There's a certain mantra, Krishna imitating the demons. He says, this is what they say. Ishwaroham, aham bogi, chiddoham, siddhoham, malavan sukhi. I learned that mantra many, many years ago. It was very easy to learn that one. Ishwaroham, aham bogi. I am the controller. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. And in that mentality, we can just look around us. There's so many, more money, more power, And what happens is the heart becomes as hard as a rock. You're ready to walk over anybody, even kill, and, whatever, for your own aggrandizement. And so Krishna says, I cast them back down again and again and again, so much suffering, and to a hellish existence. And then at the end of chapter 16, he gives this very important instruction, 4 verses. So he says, after describing the kind of frightening life of someone who's in that mentality, and Krishna, casts them into this hellish existence, he says, Trivadam nadakasyedam dwaram nashanam atmanaha kama krodas tata lobhas tasmat etat trayang tajet. So in this one verse, he says there's 3 gates leading to this hellish existence. Lust, anger, and greed. And actually, lust always comes first, kama. And from that comes anger, because you can never get enough. Lust is always frustrated. Your material desires, and not just sex desire, but all kinds of material desires. And when you're frustrated, you become angry. You may become angry at destiny or God, or you probably become angry at some other person who you blame for it, And the greed is another aspect that comes from material desire, because it can never be satisfied. And so you just want more and more and more. So he says, these are 3 gates leading to hell. The wise person gives them up. Dwaram means a gate or an opening. Don't go to those gates. Dwaram kama krodha tasmat eta. Therefore, you should give these up. Then the next verse he says the benefit of doing it. Etava mukta kontaya tamo dwarais to be anaraha atmanak acharat atmanak shreyas tato yati paramgatim. So the wise person who's given up these 3 gates acts for his own welfare. You can come in, but there won't be darshan. Darshan in 8:15. You're welcome to come for class. Please get some seats. You can sit. So he performs activities, he or she performs activities for his elevation. You see? For Shreya. This word Shreya comes up again and again. In other words, if you could escape these gates, your activities are not on the basis of kama, not on the basis of lobha, not on the basis of krodha. They're on the basis of Krishna consciousness. Then you act for your own benefit. You see. And how do you know how to act? On the basis of Shastra. That's the idea. And that comes in the last 2 verses. So he goes back and forth. These are the 3 gates leading to hell. If you can avoid them, you'll go back to Godhead. Tato yati param gatim. Literally, he says you go to the Supreme God. But on the other hand, yakshastra vinamutsaja vartate kamakata tahan nasa siddham abapto nis nasukam na param gatim. One who disregards neglects the injunctions of Shastra. Yakshastra vidi. Vidi is the do's and the don'ts in Shastra. Vidi utsraja, give them up. Yakshastra vinamutsaja vartate kamakata, and continues to act whimsically according to your material desires on the basis of kama. Then what's the result? Nasa siddhim avapnoti. You cannot get perfection. You cannot get happiness. You cannot go to the supreme goal. So this is the choice we have. we're going to act on the basis of kama, krodha, lobha, etc., or we're going to act on the basis of the injunctions of Shastra. Now that implies, and this is the theme, the central theme, we have to know. We have to know, be familiar with the injunctions of the Bhagavad Gita. And then we have to act on it. Just knowing is not enough. And that's locked in. That principle is locked in the last verse of the 16th chapter, where he says, tasmat, this word, therefore. Tasmat chastram pamanam te karya vivastito. Practically speaking, the whole practice of Krishna consciousness is summarized in these 2 lines. Therefore, one has to accept Shastra, beginning with Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and the other books we have, as your pramana. This word pramana is critical. Pramana means what you accept as evidence for how to act and how not to act, and what to aspire for. Now, without reference to Shastra, what do we got? All of these inputs coming in. Mundane activity, our parents, our friends, the internet, this, it changes throughout your life. In other words, it's all relative and material, and it's not going to take you to the supreme goal or happiness. So, one has to know what Shastra is, and accept it as evidence for what to do and what not to do. Our whole life is simply doing one thing and not another, right? There's 10 million places we could be right now. Welcome, Priscilla. Than here. But somehow or other, some decision, you all came here at this time, right? We're very auspicious. So you not hear me, but you can hear the Bhagavad Gita. I can read it. So that means, so that'll have a certain effect on how you, then the next thing you do, because it's all a question of cultivating a consciousness. So, and having understood the instruction of the Shastra, what to do and what not to do, one has to act in that way as a matter of duty. It's not going to be spontaneous at first, but spontaneously we're going to act on the basis of our sense desire. That's our conditioning. But we have this special intelligence as human beings. And if we use the intelligence properly, we can get the spiritual strength to control the impulses and act in such a way that may not be exactly what we want to do, according to our desires, and we have to give up those things that we may want to do. This is the whole point. Arjuna doesn't want to fight now, because he's emotionally attached to his grandfather on the side, his teacher, and so many relatives and friends. Even, and to this day, this is one of the most amazing things in the Gita, which usually slips by, where he says, how could we desire to live if we would have to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra? Now the sons of Dhritarashtra, headed by Duryodhana, have just spent years trying to kill them. Isn't it? The Pandavas, they had so many schemes about how to annihilate them. They tried to poison Bhishma Dev, they tried to burn him alive in a house. Now just imagine, someone tried to burn you alive in a house, you were able to escape through a tunnel, okay? How are you going to feel toward those people? Are you going to feel that, I can't live if they die? At best, we'll just try to avoid them, right? But this is the heart of a Vaishnava. He's completely forgiven them, and he says, I don't want to kill them. He's related to them. There's a family relationship. So this is, so therefore he doesn't want to fight. He doesn't want to fight. But there's Krishna sitting on the chariot saying you must fight. So this is the conflict, and the Arjuna is paralyzed. So he's representing us. We have our conditioned life and our desires, what we want to do and what we want not to do. But most of those do's and don'ts that we want to do don't fit into the process of Krishna consciousness. If we discard the injunctions of Shastra, first of all, we don't even know about it. That's the biggest discarding. And if we know, we just say, well, it's relative, it's this, it's that. Not for me, Then you can't get happiness, can't get perfection, and you can't get the ultimate goal. Now, the first thing is to know what is that ultimate goal. To know the problems that we face in this world. That comes up again and again in the Bhagavad Gita, both in the text and especially in the purports. Prabhupada is reminding us, we're in a tenuous position in this material world. We're facing destruction by time. We're all getting older. We're facing so many dangers, right? Isn't material life? It's like you're going along pretty nicely. Things are going okay, right? And then something happens that's unexpected, or that wasn't in the plan, and you have to deal with it. Sometimes it can be catastrophic. Sometimes it can just be annoying. But whatever it is, your plan has to change as you go through time. I mean, who doesn't find that? So the lesson to learn is that our position in this world is quite tenuous. We're all sitting here in these delicate little bodies, you know. And by this time, everyone knows somebody who died. Well, the child doesn't yet. I remember when I was a kid, I was like 11 or 13, 12 when my grandmother died. You know, and I knew her. We would visit her all the time. Somebody who you know and you have a relation with suddenly isn't there and dies. It was a big shock, you know. I mean, but that's what life is all about, right? Gradually, people you know die, and as you get older, you find out, my God, all my friends are there. What happened to all my friends? I'm practically the last one left, you know. So that should sober us up. There's a verse at the beginning of the second canto where this whole thing is described in a few verses by Shukadeva Goswami Pariksit. So King Pariksit, it's another dramatic scene. Just like Bhagavad Gita, it's a very dramatic scene, right? It's not an ordinary. They're not sitting in some classroom somewhere. It's on a battlefield. Right? There's a lot of everyone's attention is fixed. So similarly, King Pariksit, he gets a notice that he's going to be killed in 7 days by this snake bird. He was cursed by a little Brahmin boy who had the tejas but didn't have the discrimination. You know, he was trained in how to throw the curses, but he didn't have the discrimination of how to use that power. Anyway, so Pariksit, he accepts that situation. And then he sits down by the Ganges, gives up his kingdom, gives up his kingly dress, and just sits there. And there's a whole bunch of other sages and everybody gathered. And then the greatest sage of all arrives, Shukadeva Goswami, who's only a boy. He's young. He's 17 years old, but he's wise way beyond his years. And he sits down on the Vyasasan, and he starts speaking the Bhagavatam. And Pariksit asks a question. The question is, what should one do as death approaches? Because that's his situation. 7 days he has. You know, definitely concentrate your mind, right? And so what should one hear about? What should one think about? What should one meditate on? So the whole Bhagavatam begins kind of again in the second canto. If you read it, you know, even Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya is there again. And he says, oh, a very nice question. The asker in this question and the answer of this answering this question is beneficial not only to the speaker and the hearer, but to all those else who can hear. And that's what the Bhagavatam is all about. So he says, Shrotavyada nirajana ninamsang sahasracha apashatamatma tattvam. Those who have no clue about self-realization, God-realization, what life is all about, they have millions of things to hear about. Isn't it true? The internet has multiplied it unlimitedly. I remember when there used to be things such as like actual newspapers, paper. Remember that time? And you know, that in itself was plenty of stuff, but it was nothing like what you have now. It's just unlimited, things to describe. And all of those subject matters of those who have no clue about self-realization degrade the consciousness. And he describes in a few verses what life, the material life is like. Basically, you know, you spend your days working, making money, and nights sleeping or enjoying, and weekends shopping. He doesn't use that term shopping in the Sanskrit, but basically that's what he's talking about. Kutumba balanenava. You know, what's shopping? Basically for the kids, right? You take the kids shopping, what do you need, what do you not need? Kutumba is for the whole family. And so therefore he says this life, and so in doing that, then you have, it's a dangerous situation. Everyone knows, as I described, you know, that you have to have certain defenses in the material world. Medical assurance, that's one of them, right? And all of the things that we build up in a society to try to live secure a life if possible, right? So he says these are fallible soldiers in the battle of life. Deha patra kalatradesh atma sainesha sattvavi. Tesham pramotam nadadam pasyan up in the pasyan. This is why I thought of this verse, because about my grandmother dying. So the idea is that the first line of defense is your own body, right? Everyone's concerned about keeping good health. Kids don't concerned, but the parents are very much concerned that the children have good health and grow up right, because that's your first line of defense. If your body is ill and sick and weak, then you're finished. So then comes your family, certainly, and your society, and you try to get security in this way. But everyone knows, after living in this world for a while, it says, Deha atmasayam asatapi tesham pramotto nidanam pashyan apina pashyati. But madly, although we see that our grandmother or grandfather has died, right? That other people's bodies have died, that nobody is really secure in this world, still we take shelter of these fallible soldiers. So therefore it says pramatta. It's kind of a madness. Because we see but we don't see. This way, pashyan apina pashyati. You see? We see it, but it doesn't impact us deep in our consciousness, so that we try to get a whole different paradigm of security. So he says, therefore, in other words, since this line of activity leads simply to illusion and destruction and birth and death again and again and again, therefore here's the formula. And if you just get through this beginning of the Bhagavatam, the second canto of the Bhagavatam, you can attain perfection just by following this one verse. Tasmat Bharata. He's speaking to Parikshit, who's a descendant of King Bharat, so he's known as a Bharata, just as Arjuna is known as a Bharata. A very exalted family. Tasmat Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari Shrotavyak Kirtitazvyak Smartavyak Chechita Abhayam. So the word Abhayam is there. If you want fearlessness throughout your life and even at the time of death, then here's what you have to do. This is the only way of getting that fearlessness through all of the fearful activities of this world. You have to hear about, chant about, and remember the Supreme Personality of God, Bhagavan. He has 4 terms. Sarvatma, Bhagavan, Ishvaro, Hari. So Sarvat means the soul, the super soul in everyone's heart. He's our most intimate companion. Is Krishna within the heart. That's Sarvatma. Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Most attractive, most beautiful, infinite beauty, infinite wealth, infinite knowledge, fame. Is it everything that makes it someone or something attractive to us, Krishna has in infinity. So that's the person who we have to think about and worship and hear and chant about. Ishvaro Hari means the Supreme Controller, and Hari, who will enchant you and take your mind away and take you to Goloka Vrindavan. So that's the program. And then he gives one final verse, which gives a central principle. Etavad Sankhya Yogabhyam Swadharma Padinishtaya Janma Labak Padak Pungsam Ante Narayana Smriti. This last line, if I can just ask you to repeat it, because this is the essence of the whole thing. Ante Narayana Smriti. At the end, at death, to remember Narayan or Krishna. That's the whole point. If you're always hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping the Supreme Personality in your activities, then you'll be able to remember. And that's your perfection. That's our security, that's our happiness, that's what Krishna is describing in Bhagavad Gita. So there it is, 5 or 6 verses, he gives the whole summary of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness in the Bhagavatam. Then he expands on it and brings it out in so many thousands of verses, 18,000 verses. But you see how it's completely parallel to what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that 16th chapter. By taking the Shastra seriously, trying to know and act upon the principles in the Shastra, one can act in such a way that, and back to our verse 424, the work of a man, let's just read human being who is unattached to the modes of material nature and fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence. What that means is that your activities do not bind you to this world, but rather they liberate you from this world. And the more that you feel liberated, what are the symptoms? Less and less attraction to material things separate from Krishna. More and more attraction for serving Krishna, hearing about Krishna, and being Krishna conscious, which is the natural state of the living entity. All of this other consciousness is just like a big dream, a big distraction. And the key element is your consciousness, your mind at the time that this body finally gives out. That determines your destiny. That's what. And so we should be very concerned how to cultivate a certain consciousness that will give us the best future. And that consciousness is Krishna consciousness. And the means is So easy. Chant Hare Krishna. By just chanting the holy name, it's been made so simple. Nobody is barred. Anytime, any place, anyone can chant. The child can chant. Maybe you're already chanting a little bit. And the old person can chant. Prabhupada says even the dogs can take part. And they can dance a little bit. But the wonderful thing is that it doesn't matter. You can be doing anything anywhere. If you chant, you'll start to become purified. You'll get interested in Krishna. But at the same time, there's effort involved because we're so conditioned. But there is hope, and there's no loss or diminution. So that's what this is about. And let's see, we may have time for one other. And if we want to have a discussion on this, Krishna is describing the activities and the mentality of one who is on his way back to Godhead. I love that line in the previous verse. Yadrisha labha santushto. Just that one phrase. To be satisfied, tushta, which comes easily of its own accord. So much of our entanglement in the material world is aspiring for something that we may or may not be able to get, and then working like crazy to get that thing and idolizing it. And then when you get it, something material, it never meets all of your hopes, There's always something. And what happens is that eventually you lose it or you lose your ability to enjoy it. Isn't it? Now I've got it. I've got all this money. But alas, my digestion is so poor I can't eat anything but warm applesauce. Right? I'm a billionaire, but now I can't enjoy my food. Right? I'm getting so old. Okay, I'll do the Botox thing. I'll do, there's so many things. Try to preserve the youth. Or they'll just freeze my brain and I'll get, I have all these millions of things to make money on people who... It's insane. Right? Whereas if you're actually in Krishna consciousness and you get a taste for Krishna consciousness, then no matter at what state you're in, externally, you can enjoy like anything. Because it's not a question of simply your senses being able to it's your consciousness contacting. And you always have your consciousness. That's always there. You may become a little unconscious, but eventually, you'll come to full consciousness. So that gata sangasya muktasya. That gata sangasya means unattached to the modes of nature, free of attachment, sangha. And jnana avastita cetasa, always conscious in knowledge of how to act and what the situation is. And yajnaya achadatak, acting for yajna, sacrificing ostensibly your own interests for the interests of Krishna, which means also for the interests of everybody else. Bringing people to Krishna consciousness, that's sacrifice. But after you do that sacrifice, you find yourself in bliss. Even we do our little sacrifices Sunday night, right? We have our nice little 25-minute kirtan, right? So you sacrifice time. I usually sacrifice my, I get tired, so I sacrifice calories, whatever. And then after, what did I really lose? You're in a blissful state. You're happy, you're calm and peaceful, ready to hear a nice talk by Narendra Prabhu. And where's the sacrifice? It's really not a sacrifice. It's really a beautiful act of purification and transcendence and glorification, and it's natural. And what's wonderful is that it keeps you enlivened. 46 years later, I'm still, let's strike up the band, let's have a kirtan. What else can we think of we were doing 46 years ago, material that we really want to do today, or that we can do today? Nothing. It's proof that Krishna consciousness is on the spiritual platform. Okay, the next verse is a very famous verse. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Just a comment. Is this thing working? Can you hear me on the speaker?
I can hear you.
Okay.
But blast it out, because others may not.
Hare Krishna?
Go ahead.
Okay. So you were speaking about kind of following the scriptural injunctions. And of course that's in order to attain the ultimate goal, which, as we know, is prema bhakti, or supreme love of God, or love of Krishna. And so naturally a neophyte or a newcomer may ask, oh, well, why should I be spending so much time every day and doing sadhana, Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, which is a everyday, constant practice every day of your constant daily spiritual practice. And so I had asked this question to our dear Rajendranatha Prabhu, and he gave me a very enlightening and inspiring answer. And he was saying that, answering this question, why this constant practice every day? And he was saying that, okay, well, this practice leads to habit, and habit leads to character, and character breeds spontaneity. And from that spontaneous platform, then loving or serving Krishna becomes very natural, or it's just a part of our person, So at some point, this bhakti becomes fairly easy when they're on that spontaneous platform. So that's something that kind of inspired me. Some words that inspired me to keep going in the everyday pursuit of.
That's an interesting thing. The one thing that to me is like new about that answer is the idea of character. And character really is kind of the sum total of your habits. In other words, how you act, the parameters of what you consider to be right and wrong, and you're actually doing like that. That is clearly something that can be transformed. Education for children. The parents are always concerned that they develop good character, that they have good association, and they learn principles, and they act nicely for their ultimate benefit. So the same thing is true in Krishna consciousness, is that the only thing is that we usually come to Krishna consciousness, we're adults, and we've already developed, a certain character. It may not be a very wholesome character, whatever it is, we have some good things, some bad things, and whatever. But it's there. But it becomes clear if you follow the principles of devotional service, even for a short time, seriously, that you're undergoing a transformation in your consciousness. I remember one of my friends, I go see him when I go to Alachua, it's Indra Pramad, you remember him. So we're friends from, when I joined, I lived with him. When I moved in, the first room they gave me, I was living with Indra Pramad. And so our careers in Krishna consciousness seemed to go, when I went to L.A., he soon arrived in L.A. Then I moved, I had a whole thing, and then I went down to Miami, and I would see him in Miami. I came to SanDiego, he ended up in SanDiego. So it was obviously some kind of an astrological thing. So these days I visit him twice a year. And he told me when he first joined, he was a very competent designer. In fact, he did that for a while. Some of the books we have, the cover design, he designed that. He was professional in New York. But his marriage broke up and this and that, and so he started coming around. Somehow he heard about it. And, you ride in the subway. If you're in Manhattan, you eventually ride the subway. You're going to go anywhere. Nobody has a car. It's crazy to drive in Manhattan. So he's on the subway and he's chanting. He learned about chanting. He just started chanting. And he had been kind of depressed, because of the job, this and that. And he's chanting. By the time he gets to the temple, he says, hey, what happened to my depression? It's gone. Just being Krishna conscious transformed, for that time. Now, if you don't do much else, you fall back in the same habits and association, then, it'll be slow going. But it's a fact that our everything about our material life is malleable, meaning that our consciousness can be changed. And will be changed just by the force of time and association. But if we know the principles of how to act in such a way for that change to be most auspicious for our present life and our future life, that's what the whole teaching is, of the chanting of the holy name and the do's and don'ts, the 4 regs. Oh my God, but still, that becomes feasible, and you realize that there's a whole different realm of being that I had no idea. Because you tend to identify with your present state of consciousness. Well, this is who I really am. I'll be honest with you, when I was in my late 20s, not late 20s, maybe late teens and early 20s, I went through a period of depression. It wasn't like suicidal, but I was like, I didn't want to do anything. Because you don't, those who weren't there at the time, for me, the war in Vietnam was like the reality. That was something that I couldn't get away from. I felt that I had to take a stand. I was American, and I'm coming of age, and the draft and everything, and being completely aware of all that stuff. It was just horrible. I felt I had to do something, and I couldn't do anything about it. All the demonstrations and everything came to nothing. The war just went on and on and on. 10 years, millions of people got killed. So I like, what's the use of my life? This and that. And then you kind of identify, this is who I am. This is who I am. But it's not who you are. This is what the state of your mind is at a certain point in time. And by practicing Krishna consciousness, you realize that can change. And it can change quickly and radically for the better if you chant Hare Krishna and perform other activities of Krishna consciousness. So the science of devotional service is a science of the transformation of your consciousness and a transformation of your aspiration. Opening up a whole new realm of aspiration and seeing a path to actually achieve it. Even despite so many disqualifications that you may have materially. So it's all very hopeful, and it's all by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and Krishna to give it to us. And Srila Prabhupada, with his great effort, providing this knowledge and providing the principles of devotional service, which is part of it, and the context, these temples, which are like great oases in the desert of material world. So we should take advantage of it. And I wanted to also describe, the Bhagavatam, it's heavy philosophy. It's the ripened fruit of all the Vedas. All the knowledge is there. Bhagavad Gita knowledge is there and expanded so much, But the Bhagavatam also gives you the content. What I mean is, it encourages you. Just like this idea, as I mentioned in the beginning of the second canto, hearing and chanting. The whole essence and basis is hearing and chanting. Hearing and chanting the mantra, hearing and chanting the Bhagavad Gita, repeating it, thinking about it, acting on it. So at the end of one chapter, it describes the glories of hearing and chanting about Krishna. And then they have this beautiful verse, poetic, metaphorical, describing the results of becoming eager to hear and chant about Krishna. He says, Pibanti he bhagavata atmanaksatam katam matam shavanapoteshu sambritam punanti he vishayi vidushatashayam vajanti tat charanasoro ruhantikam. So Pibanti means to drink. So those who are eager to drink the katamritam, the nectar of Krishna Katha, the holy name, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna. Bhagavata Atmanaksatam, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the life and soul of the devotees. Atmanaksatam. Katamritam, this is the nectar of the Katha, the sound vibration. Shavanapoteshu sambitam, drinking through the ear holes, the vessels of the ears, and being fully satisfied with drinking like that. What happens? And here's the key phrase. Punanti ye. So Bibanti and Punanti. You can see the beautiful poetry. Punanti ye vishiya vidushatashiyam. So Punanti means to purify. They, ye, vishiya vidushatashiyam. Vishaya means the sense gratification, the idea for sense pleasure, which is a vishaya vidushatashiyam. Ashya, we went through a verse, nirashir, in text 21. Asha is your aspiration, your hopes, what you want. Punanti vishaya vidushatashiyam. They purify the polluted aim of life, known as sense gratification. Now, do we need more books? A couple of books, we're almost done here. Okay, we only have 2 minutes. So, the idea is that vishaya and visha, just think of the Sanskrit. Visha means poison. Vishaya means sense gratification. So this hearing, drinking the nectar of Krishna Katha, purifies the heart of this propensity to drink the poison of sense gratification. And you become purified. And what's the result? Vajanti. So you get Prabanti and Punanti and Vajanti. Vajanti, Punanti he vishaya vidushatashayam, Vajanti tat charanasororuhantikam. And they eventually return or go to the place in the spiritual world nearby the lotus feet of Krishna. In other words, in this world, you become fully satisfied and overjoyed just to hear and chant about Krishna. Don't forget, the sound is non-different from Krishna. By chanting Krishna's name, you're associating directly with Krishna. Not so material things. You may chant Disney World, but you're not at Disney World. But if you chant Goloka Vrindavan and you describe Goloka, you're there. It's all in the sound, the subtle sound. So this one verse is encouraging us to become, eager to hear and chant. And, okay, we have 1 minute. Go ahead. Where's that verse? It's the last verse of the second or third chapter of the second canto. You can look it up. Yeah. So if you go to the 10th canto, so many beautiful prayers. The gopis are singing of Krishna as he wanders in the forest. So they're saying, Anucharai samanavarna tavirya adipura shahivachala bhuti vanacharogati tatesha tadantu venanava yatigasa yadahi vanalatasthadava atmani vishnum vyanjayandihi pushpa palaja panatabada patapamadudhara prema rishtatanabova vashusma. So this is songs of the gopis. They're describing how Krishna's wandering with his friends on the side of the mountain, and they're praising him, and he looks just like the Supreme Personality of Godhead, surrounded by his energies. And he plays his flute to call the cows, and as he walks into the forest, the trees, which are fully conscious, and all of the creepers, they blossom, just like the time-lapse photography. Suddenly, boom, they're full of fruits and flowers, and the extra weight means they bow down, and the honey is coming down like tears and everything. This is what the gopis are seeing in their mind's eye when they're home churning the butter and Krishna's in the forest. So there's a whole chapter of those prayers, and they're available. They're online. You can learn them. I'll show you how to chant if you wanted to. Okay, it's time. We're going to have Artik in 5 minutes. We need to get ready. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.